Hello everyone, it's nice to meet you. I thought that I would give this a shot. I mostly am doing this for myself because I'm very shy and I'm not very good at speaking. I thought this might be a nice exercise in feeling more comfortable. So let's get started. Oh, but first, I'm afraid I could not figure out how to have my voice record as well as the audio in the actual game. So I apologize for that. And I also want to apologize if I don't pronounce some things right. I'm not even sure how you pronounce the title of this. Asagao Academy. But anyway, let's start. Play. Chapter 1. The train made its way along the gentle curve of the coast of Japan, whisking me farther and farther from home. Across from me sat a boy, face half buried in a newspaper. He was deeply entranced in whatever article he was reading and hadn't spoken a single word to me, even when I asked if I could join him in the last compartment with any available space. He shrugged, nodded, and adjusted his newspaper without ever making eye contact. It'd been almost an hour, in fact, and he hadn't once looked at me. Devoid of conversation, I took instead to counting the buttons on the pretentiously lush carmine seat cushions. 1, 2, 3, 21, 22, and so forth over and over. Now and again, I turned to look out the window where the trees were blurring by. Sometimes the smeared green would break and reveal the quiet blue of the Sea of Japan. Eventually, this rapidity made my stomach churn, and I went back to counting the buttons on the seat cushions. 1, 2, 3. The train compartments shuddered around us. My eyes wandered to the boy and his jacket. Excuse me, I have to itch my cheek. It's right in front of the microphone. It wasn't the school-issued blue that I and the other students on the train were wearing. Instead, it was a green varsity-like jacket with an embroidered patch poorly sewn on the front. "So you're a first year, then?" He folded his newspaper neatly, set it in his lap, and looked at me with a half-interested gaze. Did he just catch me staring? Now that the paper was gone, I saw his face. He watched me through heavy-lidded eyes. His hair was immaculately groomed, his teeth straight and blindingly bright. There was something about him, the way the light hit him, that made him look like he was almost sparkling? Me? He glanced around the compartment, empty besides us, and laughed. "Oh, no, I'm not a first year. I'm a third year." The train began to slow, metal wheels groaning against metal tracks. The sudden shift threatened to rob me of whatever was left in my stomach, but I closed my eyes and took a deep breath, willing myself to keep it together. What kind of impression would I leave, puking on a student before I even arrived at the academy? So, it would be alright if she puked when she does arrive at the academy, then. The boy frowned. I picked at the hem of my cotton skirt. "That's not possible. I've never seen you before." It took me a moment of mouth-fishing to find a response. It's because I'm a transfer student?" He laughed again. "A transfer student, huh? We don't get many of those." I removed my acceptance letter from the front pocket of my uniform. The paper, heavyweight, off-white, had accumulated creases from my reading and rereading, as if the words might have changed since the last time I read it. The boy took it, studied it, then handed it back to me. Well then, Hana, I suppose I'll be seeing you around. He smiled at me as he picked up the suitcase lying next to him. By the time I hiccuped a response, he was already gone from the compartment. I stared out into the empty hallway of the train. It was then that I realized he, having gotten it from my acceptance letter, knew my name and I never got his. The train settled at the station and I filed out with the rest of the uniformed students. It was early April, and the last frost of winter had come and gone. The trees were already green, their leaves shivering in the occasional gust weaving through them. The air was mild, only a few clouds hanging in the sky. I walked along the road with a swarm of blue-jacketed bodies, looking at the little groups breaking off from the crowd. Everyone was buzzing so animatedly around me. I held my suitcase tight in my sweaty hands. It was leather-bound and It was leather-bound and worth more than anything it contained. It wasn't far to the school, and I was, for maybe the first time in my life, thankful that what I owned didn't amount to much. My school issued black Oxfords clicked on the pavement. I walked this way I'm sorry I'm making so many errors. I walked this walk over and over in my mind. So many nights I lay awake, imagining what it would be like to walk from the train station to Asagao Academy this first time. My new start. I always imagined that everything would change for me on this walk. That somehow everything would be magically different. But as I looked around, I realized nothing had changed. I hadn't changed. By the time I reached the massive gate to the academy, I forgot all about the disappointment slouching in the back of my throat. The school, framed by the gate's twisting black metal, was just as beautiful as the glossy photos I saw in its pamphlets. This was it. Asagao Academy. I glanced around. The swarm of students gathered around the gate. Beyond it, tiny blue people bounced around the academy's main building. A girl pressed a button on one side of the gate. The excitement in the air was almost palpable. I'm sorry. A few moments later, the black gate, with great effort, creaked outwards and cleared the pathway. As the rest of the group shifted into motion, I followed along, a sheep in the herd. My stomach tied itself into knots. The crowd split off in different directions. For a moment, I panicked. A tired-looking man with graying hair called out for first years. A cluster of fresh-faced students gathered around him. Hey, look at that girl. I turned. A few feet away, a small group of boys were pointing at me and snickering. Pink hair? Are you kidding me? How desperate can you get? Hot shame crawled down my neck. I attached myself to a group of girls, following a few steps behind them. In the distance, cicadas hummed in time to my shoes crunching against gravel. My hair... It wasn't my fault my hair looked like this. Luckily, I found myself at the girls' dormitory, a large sign in the lawn reading, Primrose House. The building dwarfed me in size and sheer intimidation. How many students did Asagao have? As I approached the building, a red-headed girl lingering nearby caught my attention. I looked away, then looked back. She was staring at me. And she walked over.
Oh, you must be my roommate!
I don't know if you guys heard that. But I'll re-say the words just in case you don't. You must be my roommate. I eyed her warily. She was smiling and bouncing in a way that suggested her views on life were akin to a perpetual bouncy castle.
What?
Me?
Bingo.
Of course, you silly. Let me guess. Room 325? I thought back to the paper I received a month prior with a list of the supplies I needed for the year and my dorm arrangements. Yeah, that's right. She laughed, but I couldn't figure out what was so funny. Was she laughing at me? When I found out my roommate was a transfer student, I knew you were going to be a total main character. I'm sorry, a what? When I saw you outside the gate, I knew it was you. I mean, look at that hair. I felt a lump forming in my throat. What was she talking about? She had to be making fun of me. I hadn't spent more than 5 minutes on campus and I was already being mocked. My hands began to tremble. Is there something wrong with my hair? Her face slackened from its amused smile to a more worried expression. Then she began to laugh again.
Oh, no. It's great, I'm sorry.
No, it's great, I'm sorry.
We're getting off on the wrong foot, aren't we? Oh, gosh.
We're getting off on the wrong foot, aren't we?
I'm Mai Sasaki. You must be Hana.
I'm Mai Sasaki. You must be Hana. I bowed my head.
Hello.
It's nice to meet you, Mai. All your school books are waiting in our room with your welcome letter, and I read the envelope. I hope you're not mad. Mai started walking towards the dorm's front doors. I followed behind like a lost puppy. Okay, so I'm going to pause here because I don't know if this recorded well or if at all, and well, I don't really know if I'll keep on doing this. This is a test. If anybody actually watched, thank you for watching and listening. I don't know how to end this. Goodbye.